work on things on their own, as well as a good leader and teammate, to where, you know, they don't think they're better than all of their other teammates. They're a good player who's a good teammate and a leader can bring up an entire team and can help everyone on the team, you know, and can be an example. And I think a lot of, especially even the high school age kids, don't realize that if they're the star athlete and they have the right attitude and they are a leader on their team, how much their peers actually will follow their lead and really go through a brick wall for that guy. I don't think it dawns on them when they're that age, but that's my idea of a perfect player. Somebody who, you know, has all the tools. You know, you'll see a guy come out and, you know, let's say you're on the basketball floor and he comes out and, you know, just dribbles with ease, goes through the lane, jumps, you know, and you're like, wow, and this kid's never done this before. But then he learns, and then he gets that fever, and he self-motivates himself, and he becomes better and better and better each week. That, to me, is the perfect player. It's not just about what he can do on the actual floor or the field, but what else he can bring to his teammates and what opportunities that he can get for himself by being self-motivated and willing to learn and willing to listen. And so, like I said, it's a broad spectrum. It could cover all sports that way, but that would be my idea of a perfect player.
For the listeners out there, not many people know this, but Doug is actually my coach for my competitive softball team. And I'm pretty sure he just described me. So
yeah, that's it.
No, I'm
speed part.
Yeah, I'm all jokes here tonight, folks. But no, those are great traits. You know, kind of wrap up that question. Self-motivated was important. Not being selfish. Bringing up those players that aren't as talented as that person. The hardest worker, the first person in, last person out type of attitude. And I'm going to go maybe a different direction as well, but also help out in the community. Being a role model, not only just for those players in that program and maybe his or her friends, but for the community, and the youth players see that and the youth coaches see that and think, wow, you know, we want that type of player to be in our program, and how many of those can we get if we do what we see that person do? So I think I'm all for it, Doug, when it comes to those traits. And being a coach myself, I love seeing players grow like that and that are a part of the program, obviously, because that makes lives easier for coaches in some aspects. So absolutely agree with what you said there.
Yeah, the community
Go
thing
ahead,
is big
I'm sorry.
for me. So that's the what you touched on with the like in the community. I also think that more players and coaches at, let's say, the varsity level of a area, if they were more involved with the youth sports and, like, you know, showed up to maybe a youth game, or they had the youth kids come to a varsity game and, you know, did small things like make their tunnel for them to run out on the field and, you know, things like that. That's another way that I think that you build a program. And also, I know it's a little bit off topic, but when you brought it up, it just clicked in my mind that, you know, just because one kid's in the 4th grade and one kid's in the 12th grade, that 4th grader at some point is going to be on that varsity team. So if he sees, like, hey, I can be just like Johnny, who's the quarterback, or I can, you know, that's the kid I want to be when I grow up. That's big. I mean, if you get that kind of community activity with your sports teams from varsity all the way down, and, you know, your coaches have communication and the players interact a little bit, that can be huge for building a program, and especially in small school areas. I know some of these bigger schools, they just have so many kids that they don't, you know, they have a pick of the litter. They have a lot of people. But especially in some of these small school areas, I really feel like that could help a lot of their programs is if they did those community outreaches and got people involved type thing.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And having like a mentor for example, let's say there's a junior on the basketball team, and she's a mentor for someone at the youth level, whether that's middle school or even younger, that just kind of touches base, sees how they're doing, maybe comes to a game or two, and shows that that relationship, some affection, and being able to communicate with them. Obviously, that's going to help all the people involved, whether that's the junior that is doing that type of role model position, the youth player, the parents, obviously, of both sides there, the program, because obviously that player that's getting on that treatment at the youth level is going to want to probably reciprocate that when they get older. At least I would hope they would do that. And obviously the coaches and at both levels. So that's a great point. Having them involved together, meshing that program together is pretty vital. And all those coaches out there listening, take that advice and run with it. Something I didn't get a chance to do when I was a head coach was through this one special letter that I would have the varsity and JV players write to a youth football player when I was a head football coach. I didn't get a chance to do that. I should have done that and been more active in that case. We did some other things with them, like we had a autograph night. I gave them a card with our logo, and they got signatures and pictures with them, which was pretty cool. But having that letter once a week, maybe going out to the football field on those Saturday afternoons and watching them play would make an even bigger impact. And so I think going along with that perfect player, like we were previously mentioning, that's important. And so that's a great point, Doug.
Yeah, I saw it actually work firsthand with a big public school here in Cincinnati. Kerry Combs, who's a coach at Ohio State now, was the coach at Coleraine, and he basically used that blueprint. The little cards, their youth organization, he did camps for them. They had player interaction. And for Coleraine to have the level of success at the public school that they did the whole time Kerry Combs was there, he just had kids just keep feeding into his program because they were a part of the program. Even when they were, third and fourth graders, they felt like they were part of that program. And so by the time they got to be, freshmen, sophomores, they knew what the program was all about. They knew what to expect. They knew what, being in that program meant, and they were excited to be there, looking forward to being there. And, it's not too often in Ohio that public schools win state titles at the Division I level. It's normally the GCL schools and the St. I's and St. Ed's up north type schools. But he used that blueprint, and it worked well, and it actually got him a job in college. So I think it's a good blueprint to follow. It's easier said than done. He is very highly motivated, and I don't know if he ever slept, but it worked for him.
I'm sure those were small hours on the day when it comes to sleeping there. So, and obviously he did something right. He's at Ohio State as of now, and and I agree with the program and being able to, especially football in Ohio. That's a pretty big deal, and most of those public schools, obviously at Division I, like you said, don't get that chance to necessarily compete and maybe even win a state title. So yes, obviously he did something right. It wasn't that wasn't the only thing, but that definitely contributed to his program and make it succeed in the positive direction. So
yeah.
Well, I would like for you, Doug, to give a success story about someone that you have coached that wasn't very talented in that sport, but it became a success. And in whatever way that is, it could be different. It doesn't have to be stats-driven. It could be other ways. Just kind of give the listeners a success story about someone that you coached before and wasn't very talented.
I like to talk about like a most recent one, and it's not like I said, it's not a big success. Like this isn't a story of somebody that went on to, play in the NFL or major Division I college. But on my daughter's basketball team that I coached this past year, I had one girl who literally first day of practice, didn't know how to dribble, couldn't throw the ball near the rim. I mean, she wasn't strong enough to even get it to the rim. And worked with her, but she showed up. She had a great attitude. She always hustled. Just kept working with her, working on technique, working on, ball handling, like passing, catching, like, just every day at practice, working with different things, working, on defense. And by the time our tournament rolled around, after our regular season was over, our last tournament game, she scored 8 points, and I had her guarding the best player on the other team for most of that game. So, and we're talking about a 9-year-old girl. So in a 12-week span, I saw her go from literally not being able to do anything basketball related to, at the end of that game, asking me, "Are you going to coach next year? I can't wait to play." And I was like, that's great. That's what I want to see. Like, it really just, like I said, it's not a major success story, but it's the one that sticks out in my mind the most, is to see somebody go from not being able to do anything to being a willing listener, willing to work, having a positive attitude, and then, at the end of the year, being a very good contributor and a starting player and somebody you had confidence to put in the game at any point and do anything out on the floor. So that was it's not a major thing, but I've had a few guys I've coached that have went on to play college ball at different levels, but to me that one really sticks out. So that's the one that I wanted to bring up on this topic is that girl there.
Yeah, success is pretty subjective, and like you said, it may, and to be honest with you, it may not seem like it was very successful, but I mean, let's say that she didn't get that same atmosphere or have that same coaching style from another coach, or maybe even the surrounding players weren't the same. Maybe she doesn't have that positive situation with someone else, and she may not play next year, or she may not have, and she may not have liked the situation, maybe quit during the season. So I think that's an excellent story, especially for those youth coaches listening. That's what should happen, especially with those players who maybe aren't as talented just yet, because that's so important. And like you said, you could talk about players that you've had that went to play at different college levels, or been a star in high school and so on. But I think those are important because those make those life lessons stand out more so. I have a quick success story, and it was actually my first head coaching gig. It was when I was the head boys basketball coach for the 8th grade, I should say, 8th grade B team, which B teams run different with different programs. Sometimes they break up the quote unquote good players, and some of them play on the quote unquote A team, and some play on the B team. But this was a B team, and I was a B coach. Let's just say that right now. But we weren't very talented, and it's not specifically one person on this team. It was a handful of kids, and I think I had about 7 or 8 kids playing on this team, and we started out pretty rough. We finished about 3-13, I think, and all of it was because of coaching, I'm sure, and I'm sure those players would tell you that too, because it's probably true. But the things that they got out of that season were so important to their growth as a person and obviously a player, but they could not we couldn't do 5 consecutive layups in a row, and so we worked at layups, we worked at free throws, we worked on bounce passes, we worked on the fundamentals, and we got better at those, and all those fundamentals won us those 3 games. And it wasn't any certain plays or athletic ability, it was because of the fundamentals. But during that time, I had kind of experimented with different things, and one of the things was reading from a sports devotional book. And